I am here with Joe McCord, father of Orfeo.
And otherwise known as Joe Daddy, the gypsy fortune teller.
Well, tell me about why you're here in this tent.
I have no idea. I'm good at other people's fortunes. I have no idea what's going to happen to me.
And I know you've got some experience in the music industry. Can you explain a little bit about some of your background?
Yeah, I was pantomime in the 60s and 70s and early 80s. I worked with some well-known bands like Pink Floyd, Genesis, Van Morrison. Worked for the Dead for a couple of years, Jerry specifically. And it was before its time. There was no video cameras. And it was a visual audio experience. Now, I told you that word pantozique before. P-A-N-T-O-Z-I-Q-U-E. And it's the marriage and synchronization of mime, music, and satire. Now, there's nothing worse than a bad pantomime show. What's he doing with it? You know? But when it's done well, really well, and you're working in the fourth dimension, because we don't use props, it's an international language. So I worked in every country in the world except for 8 countries. And there was never a language problem, because I was reflecting them as human beings. And that's what a pantomime is supposed to be. He's like every man. And he's supposed to exorcise people's good points, bad points, things to be corrected later on in life. And in the name of high entertainment, they learn things. And I get something back, because the only true diplomacy today is in the arts. And this band, Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, is the epitome of that. They go on all over the world, and everyone knows what the word love means, and everyone knows what the word peace means, and everyone knows what brother and sister means. And by the way, the press called us hippies in the 60s. We called each other brother and sister. That's how this band is. They're like I told you before, like the flowers and the vegetables that we planted in the 60s. And so they're delivering that same thing. Let's live as brother and sister. Let's take down the walls and build bridges. That's what they're about. That's why you see Alexander's running out into the audience all the time, because he doesn't believe in that security barrier between the audience and the performer. To him, they're part of the band. And that's what's so incredible about this. And that very magic in its essence is why we are all here.
How rare is it to see that in a band nowadays?
All but extinct, really. You know, I was never totally taken with the Grateful Dead's music. I loved Jerry. He was a very close and personal friend of mine. And Jerry was a magic person, in addition to all the other things we all know of him. But Jerry believed in communal living. He believed in the gathering, and thus the Deadheads blossomed around that band, as there will, the Sharpies will around this band. People gather to where the music speaks to them, you know, on a personal level. That's why they're singing along, you know. That's why they're here. They're here to identify, to know that we're all one people. And that sums it up, man. So that's why I'm here. Well, that and little nepotism, my son's in the band.
Now, you were telling me earlier that Orfeo got his first drum set when he was 7 years old?
He was 7 years old, and he had his first drum set. He played in the garage, played really fast and really loud. And one day I opened the door and looked at him and I said, space. And that's the day he learned about music dynamics. You don't have to fill every moment with a beat or a sound. It's what you don't hear that the special things happen. You know, the Dead used to have a thing called the hanging out period, where it was just a perpetual jam. No one knew what anyone was going to play. But it happened, and people gathered around, like moths to the flame, you know? And if this band blossoms the way I think it's going to, and it certainly is already, they have over 300 million hits on YouTube collectively. That's a lot of people. And the reason is all the same reason. It's all the same reason. I want love. I want to feel like I'm part of something. That's why. That's why you guys are here. You want to be part of this. And I hope your arms don't get too stiff.
Not at all. So
you're going to be muscled out.
Well, I was at Muscle Beach earlier today,
yes,
so
okay.
there you go. I got a good workout. So, as a father, what kind of advice do you give your son when he's on the road or just in life in general?
I tell him, don't read your reviews, and don't believe it when someone tells you you're a genius, and remember that you too, like everyone else, flushes his own toilet, among other things. It's about the fact that I believe all performers, such as myself, are public servants. We're just as important as the guy who gives you electricity or gets the wood for your fireplace. We offer something to people that they need. And so I told him it's about public service. Don't ever believe that you're bigger than you actually are. I told him ego is a good thing as long as you know your limitations. Expand them as much as you can, but don't go beyond it. Most people, their higher self is up here, and the reality is they're down here. And it's two different. It's what we attain to be, you know?
Tell me something about Orfeo that no one knows.
I don't know if you'd want me to do that. Well, we named him after the Greek god of music because I always knew he was going to be a musician. I told him to be a lawyer or a doctor. I said, if you don't have to be an artist, don't. Because it's a tough life. Whether you're poor or successful, it's hard work. It's a hard life. It's a roller coaster. I raised those kids. My kids would say to me, well, is it a brown rice week, Dad, or a filet mignon week? You know, because it would change regularly. Sometimes the work would be there, the money would be there. Sometimes there'd be no money there, you know. But they saw how much fun I was having doing my thing. They said, we're going to be artists. And so he was given the name Orpheus. His mother's French, so we call him Orfeo. I will tell you one thing about Orfeo that no one knows. When I knew he was going to be a drummer, that was one thing, but I also knew he was going to be a percussionist. And I brought him to a huge garbage place, like that recyclable stuff and metal and everything all over the place. Right? I took him in there and I said, every one of these things out here is a potential percussion instrument. And he went, wow, I thought it was a pile of junk. I said, it's that too. But in that junk, you're going to find some instruments. So he bought that day a big old truck spring, right? That had different tones on it. As you went, oh. And it's still one of his favorite instruments. That's something that no one knows about, and they will now. And I'm sure he'd be proud of me telling you that. I kind of guided him. I mean, I knew he was going to be a musician. And my daughter's a great dancer and a sculptress. She's beautiful, wonderful. I have 7 kids altogether. A life in rock and roll, what can I say? An incurable romantic who loved women. And in the end, I had to raise the last 2, Orfeo and his sister, all by myself. Karma applies to everybody. It caught up to me and left all these women with my children, and in the end, I had to raise them myself.
Talk about Hendrix and meeting Hendrix and what that was like.
It's interesting. You should bring that up. Jimi, he got tired of doing the tricks. playing with his teeth and with the guitar behind his back and all the gimmicks, burning a guitar. It kind of got to be stale for him. And Jimi didn't like his own voice. Now, he and I were really tight. He gave me a Picasso painting. He's a beautiful man. He was truly a selfless man. But Jimi wanted to do something different, as he always did. He wanted to play with the band, and he didn't want to be in the spotlight anymore. Jimi didn't like the sound of his own voice. Whenever he'd play a piece of music for me, you better not say anything during the instrumentals. But when he was singing, he'd be blah, 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 blah. And I said, hey, you asked me to listen to this piece. That's part of the piece. I want to hear your voice. You know, he didn't like his own voice. But Jimi got tired of doing the gimmicks things, and he wanted me as a pantomime who he called a musician in silence. Thank you, Jimi. And he wanted me to be his front man. Now, it would take some breaking in because those girls especially, really like to see him play with that guitar between his legs and all the tricks that he used to do. But it bored him, you know. He wanted to get to a higher plane. He wanted to work with orchestras. He wanted to work with electronic music. He wanted, you know, he saw new horizons. But honestly, between you and me, I think he checked out voluntarily. Not suicide. I think he came to a crossroads. He was on his back, and yes, he had vomit in his throat, and that's what biologically killed him. But I think it had been a crossroads he had been to before, and he said, well, you know, I didn't take that road last time. I think I'm going to take it. Because he was a very adventurous man, you know. He got smuggled into Tibet. That's where he got the ring, Purple Haze. That song is about a woman who manifested in the Himalayas in front of him and put this ring on his finger. It's made of purple jade. Amazing ring. And he gave that to me too. Someone stole it from me, but it was a gift. So he and I were very, very tight, and we had plans. And then he died. You know? And I miss him. He was a very special, special human being. You know, like I told you before, that, and I'm not sure if I told you, but I'm going to tell you now, that in order to survive a full chronological life on this planet, you got to be a little dirty. You got to be a little corrupted. You got to be a little humanistic. Very few people I've met in my life that would give you the shirt off their back in a snowstorm, and Jimi was one of them. So was Janice. I was her boyfriend for 3.5 weeks, which is about the longest relationship I think she ever had. That's another story. It's a crossroads that we've come to, all of us, collectively. The world as we know it is going to change pretty soon, in a big way, and not necessarily in a great way. And it's like a giant family reunion. It's a gathering, and it's a communication. And this is something you will remember when you're an old man and an old woman. You'll remember this right to the end. It'll be one of those things you remember. For me, it was Janis Joplin singing naked at the end of the bed, ball and chain, just to me. That's something I will never forget as long as I live. They're much more organized than we were in the 60s. It's more a business as well. you know. I have so many memories and no photographs to show for it because we didn't think about that. Well, these people are masters at public relations and advertising, and the people behind them, the crew, they're very business oriented and they're trying to take care of business. They want to make money, but they want to spread the good faith. So to me, that's a good trade. You know the fool's number in the cards, the tarot cards, you know what the fool's number is? It's 0. Like the magnetic zeros. The 0 is the symbol of everything and nothing. Right? It's an incredibly powerful symbol. Magnetic zeros. There's no mistakes in the title. Alex believes in anonymity. He didn't want to have it be Alex Ebert and the Magnetic Zeros. No, it's his fictional character that he invented in his head. That's who Edward Sharpe is. There is no Edward Sharpe, you know, but he's the fool. He's the wise man at the same time. So to me, in describing that band, I said they're a feel-good band. I can't say they're rock and rollers or country western, or I can't put a label on them. They're unlabelable, really.
The movie that you're going to be in, can you describe what it is and when it's going to be out?
Well, it's called Heaven Harp, which is an instrument I play. It's otherwise known as an auto harp, but I play it against my chest and I play the lead line and the rhythm at the same time. It is a movie dedicated to all the great artists in the world that everyone almost knew. That's what this movie's about. It's about a man who was once very famous but gave up all that fame and his stuff to live out of his truck and be humble. He one day hears an old friend playing music in the distance. And like the muse, he follows that sound. Like the sirens in Greece. He follows that sound to a pawn shop where his old friend is playing just to him. And it's about him trying to acquire this instrument again, right, his old friend. And Alex Ebert plays the pawnbroker, which is wonderful. Not your typical pawnbroker, I mind you. Orfeo plays the bankrupt Beverly Hills millionaire who has an empty mansion and robs the pawn shop in the film. And Stuart Cole, the trumpeter, plays the wino in the beginning. He's perfect. He looks like a wino, but he doesn't drink. And then I'm playing the lead male character because it's kind of autobiographical, you know. And then there's a great actress that I can't say the name of yet because she has to sign her name on that white piece of paper. But she's an Academy Award-winning actress who was in a film called The Boxer. She played the mother. And then she won a Grammy recently, and she's up for another Academy Award for Prisoners, which is a film that's out in the movie theaters now. Without telling your name, you can probably figure it out now. It's a wonderful film, man, and it's just a short, but it's a feature short. It's a whole story within 25 minutes. JanglingSouls.com. But don't be calm.